Welcome to the ALX show, where we talk faith, family, and all things real estate. Let's get to it. Hello, Josh, and welcome back to the ALX show. Today, we're going to be talking about the National Association of Realtors and their settlement that has been a big deal in the real estate space for the last few months. We did another episode on this a few weeks and months ago when it first came out, but I know now that it's been kind of in the world and people have been talking about it for a while and you've been thinking through it over the last few months, it might be helpful to recap here. So this is like a part 2 of that conversation. But I wanted to catch up some listeners if they didn't hear that episode, or maybe they don't have a clear idea of what's going on. So I've got some writing here on it. And essentially, the NAR recently reached a settlement in a major antitrust lawsuit, and they agreed to pay $418 million and implement significant changes to the real estate industry practices. So this was preliminarily approved in April, and some of these changes are set to go effect in August, and then there are still some court hearings and things like that throughout the fall. But there's some major changes, and one of them is to the MLS listings, that listing agents and sellers will be prohibited from including offers of compensation to buyer agents on the MLS, and that MLSs must remove all fields related to compensation information. And the hope is that this creates more transparency and potentially reduces the price of home. We'll see whether that's true. But another big one is that for agents, so buyers agents have to enter into written agreements with their buyers before touring any home, and that agreement should clearly define the agent's role, services, and compensation, and that agents also are required to explicitly communicate that compensation commissions are negotiable. And then there's also there's a greater impact on buyers and sellers, especially for agent-client relationships, but especially for cash-strapped buyers. So like your first-time home buyers, they're going to be in a tough spot to try to come up with that kind of cash to pay their buyer's agents fees, if that's the way that it goes. That if buyer's agents become more like, kind of flat service fee for whatever they offer, that first-time home buyers and in that kind of space, it's just going to be tough because it's an additional cost to some of the down payments and things like that they'll have already. So I wanted to hear your kind of overall take on some of these changes and what you're kind of seeing with your practice, as well as some of your colleagues or your network, and just different things that you've been reading over the last few months. And yeah, just get like an inside scoop on where you're seeing this going in the future.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, it's still new. We're still working through some of the changes and the new rules and the framework of the settlement's impact on our industry. But ultimately, I see it as a good thing. What ultimately we're trying to promote is just transparency. So as real estate agents, I mean, our primary job is to be fiduciary to our clients. In order to even get in that position, our clients need to trust us. They trust that we're going to act that way. So anything that we can do to provide transparency, as far as what we're going to provide, what value we're going to bring, how we're going to get compensated, so that there's comfort and trust built in to the relationship, and that expectations are set correctly, then I'm all for that. And I think ultimately this is a good thing for the industry. I think it's time will tell how it really impacts things, but that's the general consensus among like my peers, the other agents that I talk to, and some of the recent, just kind of groupthink, meetings or conversations I've had. And we've had several, as you can imagine. I mean, everyone's trying to figure this out. But ultimately, I think the overriding sentiment from agents is it's a good thing. It could weed out agents. I mean, all of a sudden there's a new value proposition that you're going to have to deliver as a buyer's agent that maybe you didn't have to before. So there's certain things that are going to affect a large number of agents that primarily focus on buyers, and we'll see what that does. We'll see, but it's my feeling and the feeling of most of the agents that are skilled and committed and willing to willing to, or have the ability to speak to their value proposition and then deliver on it are going to be just fine. So I don't see this as anything major. I think it is a shakeup, obviously, just a rule change, but I think the rules are for the better, and I think that there are agents that are committed to providing great service to their clients will be just fine.
It's encouraging to hear. But as a marketer, I wonder if, when I read about how buyer's agents need to clearly like communicate and provide written agreements, before they go into a tour, there's no more like, hey, I'll just give you a couple tours and see how we fit and, that kind of thing. I wonder if there will be that like a change in the way that agents will market themselves, or create different like pricing structures. Like my immediate thought was there's this growing trend in services businesses called productized service, where you typically would, enter into a big contract or whatever with a services business like a marketing agency. Instead, you break out all the services into individual like line items that you can just purchase at any time. I wonder if it would be like that for realtors. Do you see anything like that where it's like for every, home tour I give you, it's like $100, or $500 to take you on the home tour, or to do, if I'm going to join you on this inspection, that's going to be $150 because it's a set amount of my time. Do you think like there's any kind of like room for agents to go in that world, or kind of the real estate like transaction to take place like that? Or is that just me as a marketer thinking that way and thinking that this is the way to communicate differently?
I think there is. Yeah, I think there will be those opportunities. Some buyers agents may choose to go that way, and it'll depend on, really, it'll be up to the buyer, right? Because they're ultimately in control, and they'll give direction as far as what they need and what they're willing to pay for it. But that goes back again to the buyer's agents, like I said, communicating their value proposition. And, in some cases, the buyer may decide, well, I feel comfortable handling this. There's several parts to a transaction. So maybe a buyer feels comfortable handling several of those, but then obviously the obvious one is getting into homes and showing homes. They need somebody to take them on tours and see homes, and they feel like, well, I can do most of this, but I need your help to do one or two things, and I'm willing to pay this for it. And that'll really be up to the buyer's agent at that point. I mean, I think it's important for agents to be confident in their skills and ability to help guide a buyer or seller to a better transaction than what would have been if they weren't involved. So I think it all comes down to how buyers agents perceive their abilities and their skill sets and their value, and then how are they willing to be compensated for it. If some buyers are struggling, or maybe they just see this as a great opportunity and they're going to get a lot more business, it's going to be a volume game, and they're just going to be transactional, and will say, hey, we're going to specialize in these few things. This is going to be our cost schedule. You can come by and pick a few things off, tell us what you want, and we'll just, pay per event or per task, whatever it may be. And sure, I think, and some agents may do really well with that. I think it's important, though, for you to be a well-rounded agent. If you're going to represent a buyer, I think you need to show them up front. And this is what this new ruling does, or the impact of this new decision does, is you need to be able to go and sit down with them and put a presentation in front of them and explain to them why it's not, yeah, I can do those things for you, but you're going to be best served if I'm with you the whole way. And I can show you why I'm going to put you in a better position, being your advocate and representing you in all aspects, rather than just doing a few things here and there, and then leaving the rest for you to figure out on your own. So that's a long answer, but I think the answer is yes. I think there will be an opportunity to do that. But I think as agents, we just need to do a better job. And that's why that's a big reason why this all came about. We need to do a better job of explaining to people what we do. How are we providing value to them in these transactions? Why is it important for you to have representation? Explaining the process, what all is involved, so that buyers and sellers can understand what goes into it and what it takes. And then they're able to make, an educated decision whether or not they need that assistance or need that guidance throughout the process.
That's really helpful. It reminds me of one of the articles that I read that's and it was in the USA Today, and it was from a realtor who was critical of the settlement and all the changes that are coming across, because she was saying, I work 60, 70-hour weeks sometimes, and I'm doing random things. I have to leave my daughter's basketball game in order to get to a tour or get to an inspection, or, I'm answering calls and texts late at night, and, all this kind of stuff, because uh, there's a lot that goes into a transaction that a realtor is providing. And it's not easy to create like billable hours out of that, or what my compensation should be, because sometimes it could take years to find a home for a buyer, whereas sometimes it takes a few weeks. And so it's really hard to gauge. So just kind of having that kind of flat percentage fee is helpful for her, just so she doesn't have to go through all the admin headache of like calculating exactly what her value is all the time, because it's really tough. Do you feel anything like that? Like as a realtor, as you're doing these kind of transactions, that like, yeah, maybe it is kind of difficult to lay out the value proposition, just because there's so much that you could do, and it's at all hours of the day. It seems like, and you got to make quick decisions really, just at any time. You got to be there when the buyer wants to be there, that kind of thing. Do you feel that kind of that sense?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There is a way to protect your income, right? I mean, having a representation agreement is, obviously the most important way to do it. But if you do, want to offer that, like certain select services for immediate compensation, and in order to do that, you're gonna have buyers that have the ability to pay you regardless, as you go. But
Mhm.
you got to pre-qualify your buyers and sellers beforehand, anyways. So that, that's another conversation. But um, yeah, I think there's what a lot of people don't understand outside of the industry is how much time and money goes into building the business, and so much of that is not seen, and because of that, people don't always understand. Well, you're getting these big fees. They don't always understand that. Well, sometimes you don't. Sometimes a lot of effort goes into finding or listing a home, and if that home doesn't sell, agents are paid on success. So if that transaction doesn't happen, then there's no money for the agent there, and there's a lot of time that went into it, and there's a lot of expense as well, that goes into that process. So you can protect your income certainly by really laying it out, and that's another good rule, and like enforcing this buyer representation, being very clear. What am I providing to you, and what is it going to cost you? That helps the agents too, because now we can see, well, hey, I'm going to show you X amount of houses. I'm going to, we're going to, it's not going to be open-ended. It says that in there. We're not going to have open-ended contracts. It's going to go for a certain period of time. And it's going to be very clear between you and me what I'm providing and what you're paying for. And it's going to be very clear understanding of who's responsible for paying the compensation. So there's things in here that are really good that I think help our industry. It adds professionalism,
Mhm.
more formality that I think is necessary.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think for the people that maybe agents that feel burned for doing a lot of work for no compensation, this does help there. Say, hey,
Mhm.
let's make it really clear. Let's lay out what the expectations are, what I'm going to do for you, and then how much it's going to cost, and then how are you going to pay me? Let's have that conversation. It's not always a fun conversation to have. That's probably why it's not had often. A lot of agents will
Mhm.
just jump in the car and go show houses because you kind of want to avoid the compensation conversation. It's not always a fun one, but that's only because agents are not able to communicate their value. And this changes that. Now agents are going to have to, because you're going to have, before you show a house, you have to have a buyer representation agreement. So you've got to get them to sign on before you even go see that house. So you need to be able to communicate your value at that moment, at the very beginning, which is
Mhm.
good, which is good. That's why the good agents will survive this, and their business will probably grow.
Mhm. Do you feel like because you've been doing this for so long, that it allows you to be more hopeful about it because you see it, and also maybe your experience in the investment world, and you've got a lot more experience than just buying and selling homes, and so I wonder, does that kind of like business expertise that you have play into how you're seeing the outcomes of this case, where you're thinking about value proposition and messaging in this way?
I don't know. I guess it does.
Mhm.
Maybe there's I think any type of business experience or experience in real estate, just the experience is going to be helpful and help generate confidence, and maybe not being as concerned about having to present value and just present in general. But I think what it does is what really on the investment side, what that has taught me is the importance of systems and processes. So and that needs to be applied here too. So if I'm going to a prospective client and we're going to talk about either listing or buying, if you have a system in place, you've got a presentation, not just you showing up and talking through a presentation, but you've got a written presentation that you send ahead of time. And then you've got a system in place, and you express that system, you express the process and why it's valuable, why it works. You show it in your you show it in your in your email or your PDF that you send over, and it walks through the steps. But you're also talk through, hey, I'm just not showing up and winging this here. We've got a built-in process that works to get your home sold. And it's not something that we're just hoping works. It's something that we've seen work. And you lay that out clearly. And then as an agent, you follow the process and you follow the steps. I think if you commit to that and you have confidence around that, then presenting is, and not to mention that builds a lot of trust, which is the most important thing. But then presenting is not as daunting, not as scary. It's you're just kind of used to it. Like what, and you kind of maybe even look forward to it because you're like, hey, I've got something valuable for you. And that's really how you should feel. You want to, like, if you don't feel like you're bringing value, if you don't feel like you know what you're doing, you're not gonna want to do those things. So, but a big step in knowing for sure that you do bring value, and a big step in building that confidence is just having the plan, having the process, being able to communicate it clearly, being able to send a written version of it over, and then be able to talk through it. So that, with all the real estate projects and raising the money and doing those, I've got a lot of experience with that. So, and I've seen the importance of having a plan, and I've seen what happens when you don't. So, I think that you need to find a plan that fits, that works, that fits with your personality, that that if you're going to tell somebody, hey, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do, then do it. Make sure that you can fulfill the commitment, and then have the confidence to go express it and explain it and point to past results. If you're a new agent, then go to your broker and work with your broker and point to your broker's results. And hopefully your broker will help you along the way. So yeah, I feel fine about this, probably just because, I've been doing this for a long time, in the real estate in general. And a lot of what I've done over my career is presenting. So maybe that's why it doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah. Every agent is going to have to step up their marketing game here in the very near future.
Well, especially buyers agents, because before, you could go find buyers, and there are a lot of them, and you had all these homes on the market, and you can go say, hey, look, let's just go look at homes. I'll help you through the transaction process. But ultimately, the seller is going to pay the seller's agent, and then the seller's agent is going to split that with me. Well, you can't say that anymore, because now you're signing a buyer's rep agreement where the buyer is agreeing to pay you. Now, that doesn't mean the seller can't pay you. The seller can still pay the buyer's agent. It's just the seller can no longer make that known on the MLS. They've got to communicate that outside of the MLS. But the buyer has to be fully aware that, well, I may have to pay you. I may be on the hook to pay your commission, to pay your compensation. Well, now I need to understand the value. I need to know what you're going to do for me. Whereas before, that really wasn't the case. I mean, I like you, right? Hey, we're going to go look at houses together. I just need somebody with a good personality, somebody that I like, somebody that can, that I've got some confidence in. But ultimately, I know that that the compensation for this agent is coming through the seller side. So it's just a different conversation. And I think there's going to be, it's a new perspective for buyers, understanding that, hey, I'm on the hook for the compensation now.
This will be so interesting to see how this unfolds, especially just on the individual, just real estate agent level, like how they'll retool their business a bit. Well, what else have you been thinking about? I know you've been, having a lot of conversations and kind of prepping for this conversation. Like, what else has been on your mind as you're thinking through this and just how it'll affect your business or in the future?
I'm building this business to focus primarily on listings. And I think that all agents need to focus primarily on listings. No, buyers are great, but I think you need to build a business that focuses on listing and then also take on buyers. Um, so, I haven't felt like this really changes much for me. I think we'll continue to focus on sellers, and getting listings. Um, but it has made me think a lot about, just like what we talked about, like, hey, let's really fine tune the presentation, fine tune the process, really hone in on exactly what we're going to do and when we're going to do it, and communicate that really, really well. Um, because up until this point, I think it's fair to say that, um, especially there's really great buyer's agents out there, incredibly talented buyer's agents. But if I was to ask you, like, today, in your experience, I know you own a home. Could you tell me, or have you been able to see the difference between a good agent and a bad agent? Like, would you be able to tell me what differentiates the two?
Mm. I have thought about this because my realtor that helped us buy this house, she asked. It was a very short transaction. I mean, it like took like a week from like me seeing the home to us entering, into an offer and all that kind of stuff. But she asked, like, do you think my services were worth it? And I was like, yeah. I mean, partially because your next house may not be worth it. It could take you 2 years, to sell it. So like, if you have a fee for that, I totally get that. But also, like, yeah, there's just so much I don't know. I mean, all the contracts, the process. And then I think what's really helpful if you're not if you're not really in tune with like the economics of the housing market and what's a good price per square foot and understanding like, the quality of the home. I think the most helpful thing for an agent, at least for me, outside of just the contracts and the process and all that kind of complicated stuff that I have no idea what to do, is is this a good valued home or not? That's really helpful for me. Like at this price point, I think we bought our house at 230 a square foot. At that price point in this neighborhood in this city, does that make sense given what you see in the house? Or just anything like that, like looking at comps and seeing whether houses in the neighborhood, like, are these real comps? Like, are they actually comparable to my house and the house that I'm looking at? Like that kind of judgment, I think is probably the most important thing that I would look for. Does this agent have good judgment to help me know if this is a good deal or not?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Market
Most people
expertise
feel that
is
way.
yeah. Market expertise is critical, right?
Yeah.
I mean, good agents will know where the market is at any given time, and that's incredibly important, right? And making and that's why I would suggest that everyone should have representation for that very reason, um, is to make sure that you're getting a good deal, or you're buying at the right price, and can negotiate through that, by being able to talk through comps with the buyer, or with the seller, because as agents we have lots of resources, to help us, get to those values and understand those values and see historical information, and see potential trends moving forward. So that's incredibly important, and I think I think that's a great point. I think what you're saying is maybe the most important thing, right? I mean, that's why you hire, that's why you hire an agent. Probably, number one, you want someone that's going to help you make a good decision.
Yeah. It's the most expensive purchase in your life. Yeah, I need some help with it.
Most like, yeah, it maybe it's probably, there's a good chance it's the most expensive asset that you'll own.
Yeah.
At least up to that point. I mean, depending on what you do, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's a high likelihood.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm curious how you would, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm curious how you would think through how to present your value. As let's say you're, on the buyer side and you need to communicate this really clearly. Why should I hire an agent? I mean, you kind of just described that, but I mean, even for you, just practically, like, what do you think your like real value, and if you were to write that down onto an outline, what that would look like?
My experience in the industry,
Mhm.
my experience with these transactions, done hundreds of them, as a buyer, as a representative. understanding the market, how to make that good decision, the ability to negotiate a good deal, the understanding of the process, what needs to happen from making an offer, from accepting an offer, all the way to close, and being able to facilitate that process, working with appraisers, working with inspectors, working with the title company, understanding what that entails, and being able to do that, to do that in a way that facilitates a smooth transaction, that if there is any confusion or there's any issues, having the experience that it's probably not the first time that I've dealt with that. So having the experience to draw on to know how to best move forward. Um, making sure that your property is marketed as well as possible. Professional photography, staging advice. You may have some pre-list renovations. I've had many years of working on renovating single-family homes, but understanding the return of investment on those renovations. What should you do? Maybe what do you think? You might think this would be a good area, that one, or making big-time renovations, and then realizing, well, the return on investment really isn't there for those kinds of things. And just having the experience and the understanding of what repairs to make and which ones not to make, which sometimes might be surprising. And just being there to support, being there as your advocate, as your fiduciary, as someone that will not rest until they know that you have been well taken care of, and that the transaction was settled in a way that you have peace about, and being by your side the entire way. My heart is to serve. My heart is to do a good job. I want everyone that works with me to feel like that they got value out of the relationship. That I'm not a discount broker by any means, but I will also earn my fee every single time, and I will make sure that whoever I work with, that the trust is there, that I'll earn it through the early stages of the relationship, and just strengthen it through the process of the transaction. My goal as a broker is one, to get the house sold in a way that is not in a way that you're happy with. I mean, sometimes the reason why I hesitate there is sometimes sellers have come in with these big expectations, like my house is worth this much, and those can be hard conversations. But they need to be had, because if you price your house too high, then it's going to sit on the market for too long. You're going to get lowball offers. You're going to get buyers that aren't that serious. So so I said, so I was going to, we want you to sell. We want the selling process to be one that's just successful, but then that is also one that's maybe realistic, but also the best that we can possibly do. Right? We don't want to leave any money on the table. We want to get the best price we can possibly get, and we want our clients to walk away feeling that we are well taken care of. We got a great deal, and we would refer this group to whoever we know that's interested in buying or selling.
I would add too, the buyers have some expectation setting sometimes. Like, I want a 5,000 square foot home. I want it right on the lake. I want it down by the city, and I want trees all around. I want a brand new kitchen, and I want it for $200,000. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about some of that.
Well, as agents, you don't want to work with an agent that just a yes person,
Mm-hmm.
because that means that they're probably either desperate for business, or they just don't really know, right? They don't really know what the market's like. So you gotta be careful. And agents got to do the same thing. That's why pre-qualification is so important. If you're signed on to work with a buyer, like, you need to have that conversation in advance before you sign the buyer representation agreement. Hey, find the motivation. Why are you buying? What are you looking for? Learn about the person. Learn about their life. What they're looking for. Figure out what their expectations are for a house. And honestly, if they give you unreasonable expectations, and you've had that conversation, and you've shared, don't just share, show. Bring comps, and you show someone, hey, I get it. This is what you're looking for, but unfortunately, that's just not what the market will bear. So this is more in line with what's going on, with kind of what you're looking for. This is what's going to cost, and show that. And if the buyer is still unwilling or still like, no, like it's got to, then as an agent, sometimes you got to know it's time to walk away. I'm sorry, I'm not the right person for this. But I will help find someone that is. Like, let me connect you with some other agents that I think are a better fit here. But if you don't in your heart have conviction, like you can't really help, I mean, make sure you can help, right? Make sure that you're confident, you have conviction that I can help this person. This is a situation, and that's what prospecting is, right? Finding someone with a problem and then solve that problem. So find someone with a solvable problem that you can solve, and then explain your value to that person or to those people, and then follow through on your commitment. So if you can't solve someone's problem, and that you figure that out in the pre-qualification process before you sign any documentation, then you help them find somebody else that can.
I love that. Yeah, like we were saying earlier, it's a much more pressure, more emphasis on agents being able to basically sharpen their business skill, sharpen their marketing skills. You got to understand your time, you got to understand your value, communicate that clearly. That's really great. Any closing thoughts on this settlement and the future of the real estate and future of how you see your business?
I think it's exciting. I think anytime there's big changes, in the real estate industry, then there's opportunities. And I think it's good for us as agents, as brokers, to really like to look inward and say, where's my value? What am I doing? Like I need to have confidence and belief in myself, and I need to be able to communicate that to whoever I'm working with. And if it's not there, well then build it in. So okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to fix my systems? Do I need to fix my processes? Do I need to study the market more? Do I need to study contracts more? Do I need to go sit down with somebody at the title agency and maybe talk through different things? There's all things you can do. Just continue to get educated. So the agents that are committed to the profession will do that. And there'll be opportunities for it, because there's a lot of agents who won't be willing to do that, who won't be willing to put a presentation together, who won't be willing to sell their value proposition. I hope they do, but there'll be a lot of agents that won't. So that means there's opportunities for those that will. So I think it's great for the consumers too. I think it's great for home buyers, for home sellers. I think transparency is always a good thing. So it only leads to trust and a better understanding of expectations. So I think ultimately this is a good thing for all involved. It's different. It may take some time getting used to. It's still getting rolled out, as you mentioned in the opening. So we'll yet to really see what kind of impact it'll have. But I am optimistic. I'm hopeful. I think that this is ultimately going to be a good thing for everybody.
Awesome. Well, can't wait to see what happens. Josh, thank you so much for your expertise, your heart. I know you have such a passion for doing a great job with your clients and your business, and just really helping even real estate industry broadly and DFW and helping connect people. And so I'm just really thankful for you and your insight here, and excited to chat with you again in the next episode.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you as always, man.
All right, see you later.